Archery. Don't knock it till you try it. Tune in to find out why. Hi all, my name is Half-Cocked Hilbilly, and today we're going to be talking about the when and the why you'd use a bow during the apocalypse. But before we get to that, guys, I am so excited to tell y'all I am just about at 1,000 subscribers. And to celebrate that, I want to do a 1,000 subscriber giveaway. So once next week's video is posted, I'm going to go through all the comments on all the content I've put out so far, and I'm going to pick my favorite. That's for here on my YouTube channel and on my Instagram page, which if you don't follow that, the link's in my description. Just make sure that you subscribe or follow me, that the post is liked, and that you leave a comment under that post. And besides that, as always, I am going to leave a gear list in the YouTube description. And if you do like any of the gear that I use, I have some Amazon affiliate links so you can also go ahead and acquire that gear for yourself. Thank you so much for all the support y'all have given me. Every like, comment, and subscribe means the whole world to me. I plan on doing this YouTube thing for a long while, and I hope y'all stick with me for the ride. All right, with that being said, let's get back to the show. According to modern science, archery's been around for almost 71,000 years, and at this point, billions of people have used it to feed their families. There is a few different types of bows. The first type I want to talk about is just your standard vertical bow and arrow. So we started out with long bows. It's literally just a long shaft with a string tied to each end, and it does its job pretty well. Then technology advanced a little bit, and humans invented the recurve bow. Instead of a long shaft that has two curves at the end, which allows the bow to be a lot more compact, but without sacrificing power and also giving the user a little bit of let off. So just to explain let off real quick, if you have a 50-pound bow, if there's zero let off, once you pull that bow all the way back, you're going to be holding back that entire 50-pound draw weight. But if you have a 90% let off, instead of having that whole 50-pound draw, it's only a 5-pound draw weight. So in that way, recurve bows helped a ton. And now in modern day, we have these wonderful contraptions known as compound bows. They're mostly made out of aluminum, and there's these cams on the end that not only give you a ton of let off, but also helps keep your arrow speeds relatively quick. These compound bows are incredibly consistent, and you could even mount modern optics on them. Now, longbow and recurve bow technology has caught up to these compound bows. However, if you're using a vertical bow, you're probably going to want to use something like this. In about 6,000 BCE, we find the earliest examples of a crossbow. These crossbows similarly have longbow type, a recurve type, and a compound type as well. The nice thing about crossbows is you don't need as much practice to be proficient with them. What makes a vertical bow challenging is not only do you have to tune that bow perfectly to yourself, but you also need to build muscle memory up within your own body. With this crossbow, as long as you can cock the bow and you have a steady hand, you can be effective with it. All right, guys, we're about to go outside and do some real-world testing on targets. But before we do that, I want to address safety. First off, I'm going to feature some firearms in this video. They all have been double and triple safety checked, so all the guns in this video have been unloaded. The next is, these bow and arrows may not be as powerful as a firearm, however, they are still dangerous tools. While arrows may not look like they could penetrate a lot, as you'll see in the footage here, they go through quite a lot of stuff, and they are capable at taking life very effectively. A really good friend of mine whose legal name is Mike would always say, stupid games win stupid prizes. Do not win the stupid prize with a bow. It's a bad day for everybody.
It's been 3 weeks since the world stopped. While the cities have been struggling, rural areas have lived a relatively peaceful life. Homesteading went from hobby to a full-time job. However, they might not be ready for the new urban sprawl. Hopefully, the residents are ready for the waves of chaos.
Before we start blowing stuff up, I want to go over some of my gear. Today when we talk about bows, it's in the situation of the world has ended, you have limited supplies, and you're going out to find food to provide for your family. So with that, we're going to go over a crossbow and a normal compound bow. But before we hit that, let's go over what I would carry real quick. Most of my gear here, I would take with me even in rule of law. Like if I had to go bow hunt, most of this stuff I would take with me. Now in the situation that I actually might run into some dangerous people that want to steal my stuff or follow me back to my home, I do have a couple extra precautions. So first is going to be my Palmetto State Armory AR-15. It's a 16-inch 5.56 rifle with a mid-length gas system. I have here a nice trim 20-round YouTube compliant magazine. not only to comply with YouTube, but also because dragging this around the woods is a real pain in the butt. And this smaller profile magazine makes it a lot easier, especially when it's not going to be your primary hunting tool. Next little extras that I have here is a spare magazine for my AR. Now I do have my radio, which I have started to carry in normal hunting applications, just because if someone's got to come drag me out of the woods and I don't have phone service, this is the next best thing. Now, as always on the channel, I have my Streamlight ProTac HLX and my Leatherman Wave. As far as my pistol goes, which I always got a pistol on me, you might not need one if you have a rifle, but it is the end of the world and every little bit helps. So I have my Smith & Wesson SW99 and I have it in my custom leather holster. The neck that I would carry to process some game is a Havalon knife with replaceable surgical blades, a nice butane lighter, and some rubber gloves in case I got to get my hands dirty. And of course, on my chest, I have an Onward Research Recce rig, which I highly recommend. Super comfortable. I love the H harness. Nothing really binds up on me. Next, I have just a Field and Stream backpack. I have a little bit of water. In this situation, we're not going far from home. And really, if you're hunting, you don't really need a huge spread. So I got my water, granola bar in case I need a snack, extra pair of gloves. I have this little extra towel in case I need help gripping slippery meat, and even more spare rubber gloves. And of course, at the very bottom of my bag, I have a bunch of plastic baggies so I can process the game. That way I don't have to drag the deer all the way back to camp or wherever you may hang your hat that night. And one thing that I do carry with me is some Allen keys. This is a Matthews Solo Cam bow. It's from the late 90s, and the optics on it are adjusted with Allen keys. So I always take some with me just in case I have to make any infield tweaks or if something rattles loose. This crossbow is a Parker Thunderhawk. It's actually Mrs. Half-Cocked's crossbow, and this thing is absolute beast. It's really compact, which is perfect for her, and I actually kind of prefer it. Growing up, my dad owned a fantastic Excalibur crossbow, and that thing was an absolute javelin launcher, but it was huge and it was heavy. This is super compact and be really easy to maneuver around the woods. All right, y'all, with that being said, let's start blowing stuff up. All right, guys, so I forgot to film, but I finally got my bow dialed in. It is shooting slightly high to the left, but this is very workable for what we're doing here today. Bows can be really finicky, so you want to make sure you have this dialed to you. Let's move on to the crossbow and we'll regroup. This is offhand at 25 yards, so I aimed here, here, and here. Obviously it's not a rifle, but I'm pretty happy with that, and it's a lot easier to use than a normal compound bow. Now that we've done the boring stuff, let's start killing some targets. All right, everyone, let's get a live look and see what happens when we shoot some live targets with different arrowheads. This here's a judo point. It's meant for small game. Let's check it out. All right, let's check it out. All right, y'all, so that went right through the tin can and still stuck in the target. Definitely would be lethal on small game. All right, guys, now let's do the same thing, but with the crossbow.
Wow. Let's do that again.
As next up, I have a bunch of Barilla corn tortillas down there. I want to test the penetration of a fixed blade broadhead. So there's actually two different types of broadheads. You have a fixed blade and a mechanical blade. I don't actually have any of those on hand right now. I actually like fixed blades better. They tend to penetrate bone a lot easier than the mechanical ones do. Now, one downside is if you have a faster bow, like with my crossbow, these little blades can act as wings. So even though your bow could be zeroed in, when you pull the trigger, your arrow might veer off course a little bit.
I'm done. Goodbye.
All right, now let's try the crossbow. All right. So my bolt has penetrated all of my tortillas, making a beautiful, beautiful wound channel. And it even knocked our buzzball at the top. Thank God.
Got him!
Oh. A couple different types of points you want to put on your arrows that I didn't actually mention in the field are these. So first you have your field point. This field point is basically the bow equivalent of a full metal jacket. It's only meant for target shooting. You're not going to hunt anything with this. And if you do decide to hunt with this, it's very inhumane because it just pokes a clean hole and prolongs the harvesting process. The next is this mechanical broadhead. Earlier I showed you guys the classic fixed broadhead, but this is, dare I say, slightly newer school technology. This broadhead is great for high velocity arrows because the blades fold up into the tip, so you don't have anything changing the trajectory of your arrow mid-flight. But once it makes contact with your target, it pushes these blades out, creating a much greater wound channel. There are certain states here in America that require you to have a certain size cutting diameter, but this one's plenty big at about 1.5 inches. I don't know in the archery world if they have FUD lore, but in the gun world, like I said, we have what's called FUD lore, which is something that an old guy will tell you. No one knows if it's true or not, but it's just generally accepted. I was told by a bunch of old timers as a kid that if you're going on a hunting trip, fixed blades break bones, but bones break mechanical blades. I don't know if that's true. If you have different experiences, let me know down below. Full disclosure here, guys, I actually already had an opinion form about my results before I actually tested them out. So my whole life, I preferred my vertical bow to a crossbow. The crossbows I used as a kid were really bulky and heavy and kind of awkward to maneuver. Once they were in a fixed position, they did their job better than you think they would, but I still really just like my bow. Like I said, mine was tuned to me, I built up muscle memory, and it felt effortless to use. But that has changed. I am now 29 years old, and I really have not practiced with my bow consistently since I was about 20. As you all know, life gets in the way, you get more responsibilities, you find different interests. So my bow doesn't really feel like an extension of my body anymore, and I really have to try to use it. Another issue that I face is I am recovering from a rotator cuff injury. It took me a little bit to actually warm up with my bow, and having my left arm completely extended did start to cause some discomfort. So I might not have been as steady as I could have been, and you're gonna see that in my range footage too. When it came time to sight in the crossbow, I was immediately impressed. Not only was it much quieter than my vertical bow, but it was also so much easier to just pick up and use. But I was almost Robin Hooding my arrows to the point where I was starting to have to aim at different bullseyes. Even though the crossbow is harder to manually load, it's much easier to aim. And on top of that, the magnified optic makes hitting a target a breeze. I kept my target to about 25 yards because I feel like that's a very fair, effective range for me to just pick up my bow and use. But after using that crossbow, I would have felt comfortable just starting to shoot at targets out past 60 yards with you. Mrs. HC's crossbow is much newer than my compound bow. This Matthew Solo Cam MQ1 was manufactured in 2002. While it does work, it's definitely off of very outdated technology. A couple years ago, my little brother gifted me this bow that he won in a raffle, and it's a much newer Matthews V3. It's not brand new, but compared to my Solo Cam, this bow is pretty much the new hotness. I do feel that if I had this set up for the video, I would have got completely different results, and my opinion might have been skewed a little bit. When and why would I use archery tackle in the end of the world? In a world where there is no law, ammunition is precious. You never know when you're going to need it, and unless you have components or a huge stash of ammo, you might not find any more. On top of that, if you don't have a common military caliber or in rural setting a common hunting caliber, with bow and arrows you can recover your ammo. So these crossbow bolts will last until I lose it or it breaks. And if it does break, you can manufacture a new one out of raw materials. If you could find bird feathers, you can make new fletching.
You're despicable.
If you have access to a lathe, you could always machine new bolts or arrows out of aluminum or wood. And of course, you could make any sort of broadhead or tip out of stone. If I had to go get groceries and I couldn't buy more bullets, I'd grab a bow first. Now, while they are loud, they are still leaps and bounds quieter than a rifle. So you save your hearing, you're not gonna let every single person within 3 square miles know where you are, and you're not going to scare away the rest of the game. Another way I'd use them in the apocalypse is they're just plain fun. Because you can just continuously reuse your ammo, it's a really great way to not only hone your skill, but kill time. If you think of how much time we look at screens during the day, once society collapses, you're not going to have that. So once your work is done, you could get bored. Not only is it a good way to pass the time, but you could also make up fun games with your friends and family, and it's a good way to keep your hands busy. With all that nice stuff being said, let's talk about some of the downsides. So, like I said before, while bows are great for hunting and for entertainment, they're not exactly great if you have to defend yourself. Like I said earlier, I'm recovering from a shoulder injury, and I got this bow fitted to me when I was a teenager, so the draw weight's only like 45 pounds. Most compound bows for adult men is going to be about 60 pounds, give or take. This is nothing too heavy, and I still was a little uncomfortable using it. If you're tired, or you're hungry, or you're really stressed out, these are going to be way more challenging to use. On top of that, the range is pretty limited. When I was at my best, I could pretty consistently hit most of my shots at 65 yards, and anything past that was just kind of a waste of my efforts. Now, if you had a gun of almost any sort, 100 yards is pretty doable. And to contrast that, if someone was coming at you with a gun, all they had to do was just stand kind of far away from you, and there's nothing you can really do about it. Another thing to think about is arrows and bolts go way slower than firearms. So your standard pistol cartridge is going anywhere from about 800 to 1,500 feet per second. And your rifle cartridges are going anywhere from 1,900 feet per second to 3,000 plus feet per second. And then you take a look at your standard arrows are going anywhere from 250 to 350 FPS. And then your crossbow bolts are going anywhere from about 300 to 500 feet per second. I'm not saying you're just going to be able to sidestep these like Nerf darts, but just like deer jump arrows, if someone's watching you, they could probably jump your arrow as well. And as you can see from my range footage too, bow and arrows are not necessarily completely silent like the media would have you believe. You're not necessarily going to be a ninja if you're trying to invade an occupying force. And then finally, if you do decide you want to be like Daryl Dixon and run around with a crossbow, that first bolt is super deadly. But once that bolt's launched, you got to reload it, which requires you to stick it at least 1 foot straight out and pull back with both your hands. There are some real fancy crossbows now that have a battery-powered motor that automatically cock it for you, which I do believe is a game changer, but most of us don't have that. So yeah, I do think if bows are used in the correct way, they're incredibly capable tools and they'll keep your belly full. Alright guys, just some final thoughts here. Bow and arrows have definitely made a name for themselves in media. They have a really awesome screen presence, and in movies, books, and video games, you'll see characters doing some really cool stuff with ancient technology. But the truth is, in an end-of-the-world situation, if you have to go toe-to-toe to someone with a gun, it's going to be a really bad day for you. Now, there is a tool that has better range than a crossbow, better combat effectiveness than a vertical bow. It's more compact than either of them, and is less physically demanding. It's going to be my 41 Magnum revolver. It's way smaller than either. It holds 6 rounds instead of 1. You don't have to use your entire body to operate it. And if you practice at all with it, hitting a deer-sized target at 100 yards is very doable. But now, like I said, if you can't just go out and buy more ammo, the bow is going to be a better option. I'm not saying I'd take this over a crossbow if I was going on a hunting trip, but it's just some food for thought. But in the end of the day, if I had to get shot with a gun or a bow, I'd choose a gun. I don't know if you've looked at a broadhead. That's kind of terrifying. I would not want to get hit with that. But all jokes aside, I do want to give y'all some husband-boyfriend advice, because I'm not a dad yet. I've learned 3 sentences, if said in this order, will help you out immensely. But you have to mean it. I'm sorry. I was wrong. You were right. If you can bring yourself to say those things and mean them, your life is going to be a lot easier. All right, y'all, that's all I got for you today. My name is Half-Cocked Hilbilly. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world. Don't forget about my 1,000 subscriber giveaway. Make sure you like and subscribe. I can't wait to send this one out to you guys. If there's anything else you'd like to see in the future, also feel free to leave it in the comments. I'll see y'all real soon. Goodbye.
Oh, that's not very nice. It's just a donkey.